What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Retro Encounter. As always, I am Josh Curry. With me is Chris Gebauer.
Hello.
And Mike Sollosi.
Hi, everybody.
We are here to talk about the second half of Child of Light. As we discussed last time, we made it to Chapter 6, was it?
Yes,
That's
we,
right.
we beat the
We beat a spider.
the spider boss at the end of Chapter 6, and then went to the Moon Shrine, I think, at the beginning of Chapter 7.
Yeah, so
Correct.
now we have finished the game. There's some surprises. I honestly was more shocked than anything else that there was legitimate story.
Well, okay, that's being a little unfair. The first half of Child of Light does have
well-
legitimate story.
But there's legitimate story, but it was kind of like, it was more cute, and there's these little just like bite-sized pieces that is more so. I felt like I more enjoyed the world than I enjoyed the story.
Do you mean
And-
like specifically the idea of like first half it was more find these three things and all will be saved, and then at the end it was well these are your sisters and your mom, your stepmom, and now it's personal. You mean like that
Right.
kind of transition
Well,
from
yeah, I
I
felt like it was a pleasurable jaunt, and then all of a sudden we went through the mirror, and I was like, oh crap, we're
Yeah.
in some real now.
well,
I don't know. It caught that whole part caught me off guard. I hate doing predictions on this show, but we had predictions
we did.
last episode.
mhm.
Someone was right.
It was Chris.
Maybe.
That's right. Damn straight it was.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, I understand what you're talking about, but I didn't think it was that surprising that the first half was more lighthearted and introducing different new settings and new characters, and the characters in this game are quirky as hell. And then just the second half takes some darker turns, and the stakes are very high, and there's some weird death and darkness involved, but it ends on an optimistic note. It was I thought it was the second half of Child of Light wrapped the story in a way that was pretty satisfying.
It was I think it was actually a. So, I think it was a fantastic story. And I do like how it all comes
Really?
together.
You actually do think it is fantastic?
It's a fantastic video game story.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted the qualification.
That's a valuable clarification.
I was just more. So we had made those predictions, and I came up with this crazy story. And at the end of the day, even when I was saying it, I was kind of expecting, this really ultimately probably we're not going to really have decent closure on any of this. We're not going to really. I don't think we're going to figure out what's going on with her mom. I don't think we're going to find out with her dad. And we brought up Limbo last time, and I kind of expected more of a Limbo-esque ending. I expected it to still be happy and go lucky, occasionally have some terrible bosses. There's going to be some battles. They had already set up who the enemies were going to be. And I figured those would be boss battles, and we'd be kind of done with it. And we would have been caught off guard that we looked way into this game and expected something, like some big surprises and whatnot, and ultimately the story wouldn't really be there. It'd be more of an experiential game of the world that we were in and the poem conversations. And so I know I say that after I had this crazy like conspiracy theory about how everything was going to happen, but I honestly didn't think we were going to get anything. And so as soon as Nora's like, yeah, by the way, I got you in a trap, it was one of those like the kind of like the game and the world for me just like tilted. I was like, oh, this was not expected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
It sounds like I'm the only one that had that feeling.
Well, no, go ahead. You had Mike. You were speaking first.
I don't think my expectations were shattered exactly. Like I expected them to address the Queen of Darkness stuff and for the land to be saved somehow, because that's the most normal story arc that they were setting up. But it was pretty cool that they twisted it into directly involving her stepmother and stepsisters that were only mentioned at the first half of the game, and then you meet Nora around chapter 3 or 4, I think. And Chris was right on with his prediction that there is an evil stepmother and evil stepsisters involved, and basically right at the end of chapter 7, beginning of chapter 8, Nora reveals that her sister and her mother are the last scions of this of the evil, Queen of the Night family line or something, and they're trying to eliminate the Queen of Light's family line, which is Aurora. But they right when they try to kill her, they can't because of some protection from her crown.
Crown.
Yes.
Am I misreading this? No, okay.
No, you're correct.
Yeah,
the
so
crown
that
was
crown had
imbued
magic
with a
on it.
magical
Right.
protection spell.
Okay, so they lock her up instead.
That's why at the beginning of the game, was it actually the Queen of Light that you met at the very beginning?
No,
That was her mom that she met at the very beginning, right?
No, I think the Lady of the Forest is someone else. Okay.
Well, anyways, the Lady of the Forest, though, that's why she tells you to keep that crown on at all times.
Yes. Well, okay, this is going to get weird. And I did a little bit of reading and talking to some of the NPCs near the end of the game when I was doing side quests.
Mhm.
And they talk about how Lemuria, the land where they are, was founded by 4 great explorers. And and the forest, plains, cliffs, and ocean are named after those 4. And the Queen of Darkness is descended from one of them. The Queen of Light's descended from one of them. And I think the Lady of the Forest is a deity descended from another one.
Okay.
So the Lady of the Forest is an ally of yours, but she is not the Queen of Light. She's a separate, benign person. But it's
Beside the altar
did
is the
see
Lady of the Forest, who reveals herself to be the Queen of Light,
Wait,
Aurora's mother.
she is the Queen of Light?
Yep.
I still don't. You see, that is the one thing that bothers me the most about this game, but about the story in the game. But we can talk about later because that's at the very, very end.
Yeah,
They packed a lot in at the end.
I thought that was the Lady of the Forest, which is why it's the reveal of hunchback old woman to haha majestic Queen of Light that we saw in the flashback where I died. And I love how that's never addressed. It's like we saw you die.
And should I just jump into my problem with this because it goes right into the end?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or do we
I
can
think
wait?
so. I think so.
Okay, now we know that Aurora dying in the real world sent her to Lemuria, and
Yes.
And her mother, the Queen of Light, was the Queen of Lemuria, and she was defeated by the Queen of the Night, who has been slowly taking over Lemuria and shrouding it in darkness. Right?
Yeah, and she was poisoned, I guess in Austria,
So-
not in Lemuria.
Okay, I'm gonna get a little weird here. Like we made comparisons to Wonderland and Oz in the first episode,
Mhm.
and those were fair comparisons for several reasons. But this reminds me a lot of an old Astrid Lindgren book that I read as a child called The Brothers Lionheart, where these 2 boys that die get transported to a mysterious world, and they have to right the wrongs in that world after death. But it has death as like a step in the journey, and doesn't and the land in Brothers Lionheart isn't really an afterlife so much as another world.
Right.
So that's what this reminds me of. I think what happened was the Aurora's mother was poisoned and died, and that sent her to Lemuria, where
she then gets imprisoned.
where she's imprisoned or defeated, I think.
Yeah.
And then a similar thing happens to Aurora. She's poisoned and died and goes to Lemuria, and she tries to save the world. But my problem is, what happened to the Queen of Light? Did she die in Lemuria? Did she just get sealed away?
That's one thing I really don't know, and it doesn't. Again, in kind of that traditional fairy tale thing, it doesn't need to explain any of it. It just kind of happens, and you just go with it. So to kind of
Yes.
to
Apparently
the point
for Mike,
before,
it does need to be
no,
explained.
no.
No,
But I don't mean it in that way. Because I'm actually with Mike. It's like for the sake of the story, like you said before, Josh. It's like it's fine for that little fairy tale jaunt we've been going along the way. It works. So good job.
I don't
But
always need
it
things
is
explained.
frustrating. It is frustrating a little bit to be like, because the game has so much charm and character in its art and its world building of just design. I think it does for us, from what it sounds like. There's that little part that's like, no, I want there to be more. I just want it to be a little more populated. I want it to have a little more soul, and for it to just kind of be like, oh, and here, this is how it ends. There's this, there's that.
So one of
It's like,
the things I always think about for this is, I think we naively always assume that how our world is what everybody else's has to be.
Right.
And so I kind of go 2 routes with the whole mother thing. One, it sounds like she died a decent amount of time ago, so maybe she was there for a really, really long time, and then for whatever reason she's able to be regenerated, like down, whatever. The other thing is I I see parallels between what happens to her, like Queen of Light, compared to what actually happens to Aurora during the story, because there's two specific times that you actually age, and you basically age by accomplishing something. Um, and maybe by the Queen of Light being, and granted, we again, it still doesn't, none of this is explained, but by her losing power, it causes her to age negatively. And
Mm-hmm.
then by the balance being kind of reinstated at the end, that's what allows her to kind of be more okay.
Maybe.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, having the power of the sun, moon, and stars taken away from Aurora's mother had her age rapidly into a crone, and when Aurora gathered those three back, it restored Aurora's mother's powers a little bit. That's possible. I think it's.
Right.
I think it. My interpretation is that age doesn't have a lot of meaning in Lemuria, because I mean, Finn is 13 years old, and he looks like a fully bearded dwarf. And
Well, dwarves age faster.
yeah, but I mean but I mean Aurora's not a dwarf. Why does she visibly age and become more regal when she obtains the new powers? I think basically Lemuria doesn't have like the powers and age that
It's its own
happens.
universe and laws.
Yeah, it has its own set of rules, and I don't need everything explained necessarily. That's not
No,
how
I know
my
that's not
mind
what you
works. But
meant.
I just felt it was inconsistent in
Yeah.
in having, it felt like Aurora's mother was dead and gone, and the world fell into ruin because she was dead and gone. And
Yep.
but then she's able to come back come back instantly and save Aurora from death completely out of left field.
Totally with you.
Yeah. So that was the inconsistency that bothered me. Not that everything wasn't perfectly explained.
Oh yeah, but to me, it's like my jumping off of that was more, it like me, Christopher. I like this game so much that I want more, and that it's not there, it is a disappointment, but it's also not what they were going for.
And all right, I'm going to piggyback off of that. This game was not very long. I finished it in
Oh.
I think 8 hours, and I took my sweet time exploring around and doing side quests and messing around with Oculus gems stuff. So I'm pretty sure you could easily beat this game in 6. So do you think the game was? Would you have preferred the game went on a little longer? Maybe go on to 12 or 13 chapters, or do you think it was just right how it was?
I think in terms of gameplay design and the loop they have, lengthwise, it was fine. I think if the game had an extra couple more hours, I think the grind would become a little too much.
I also
In
think
terms
at some point the way it's written would really piss you off.
Yeah, potentially.
I think
Give
it's
it more rope, there's more of a chance for you to hang yourself, kind of thing.
right. I think they did a very good job with it. I think at some point, if you if you have to read that for 50 hours, and I know you're not saying a 50-hour game, but like
No.
it, at some point it just becomes too much. And I like I like having those bite-sized games. I feel like there's too much of this drive to have these games that, look, quite honestly, most people can't ever finish because it takes too long. And so to have a relatively concise story, a relatively concise experience, absolutely there's stuff that I'd like to be added. Just kind of padding out a few things about relationships and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it's a neat little package.
It is, and I agree with you. But I think I mean like the perfect video games or like the best video games never wear out their welcome, right? Like you're right when you are right before you're worried you might be getting bored, the game is over and it was satisfying. But for Child of Light, I think I could have stood for it to be a little longer because I wasn't fatigued yet. And also, like Angus and Jen join you in chapters 8 and 9, and like you don't even get to hang out with them for at all, and before
Yeah.
the game's over.
Yeah, and
They're
both
like really cool characters.
Yeah, they are.
And you fight Nora, whose real name is Nox, and the Queen, whose real name is I think Umbra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You fight Nox and Umbra back to back without even really a final dungeon. You just sort of you're in the hanging out in the sun shrine for
In all fairness, there's
15
barely
minutes.
dungeons in this game.
Yeah, and the dungeons were 15-minute experiences, and it was even really easy to avoid combat because you had a free stun or blind, and you could just fly around people, and the enemies rarely chased you unless you got right in their faces. So the gameplay loops in Child of Light are so brief and so easy for the most part. I wouldn't have minded if there were a few more of them. Again, I mean, the game ends in 10 chapters. I would have been okay if it was a little longer, but I mean, longer than if it went longer than 12 or 13, I would probably have gotten bored. But that didn't
Right.
happen.
So with kind of length and we've talked about length and story. One of the things that really struck me with this, which at the end of the day, almost every story fits into this, but you guys are aware of Hero with Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, kind of the hero's
Yes.
journey outline.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay. So I'll just send this to you guys. It this story follows that pattern extremely well. Um, Going from kind of a call to adventure, refusal of the call, me and the mentor crossing the threshold,
Yep.
test and allies approach, the death and rebirth, reward seizing the sword, the road back, resurrection, return with
Yeah,
elixir.
it's sort of
Um,
like a sort. I mean, it's a type of story arc, just like a save the cat moment or something, or even a Chekhov's gun, which we've talked about on podcasts before. It's just story
right,
conventions that fit specific ways and work for a reason.
right. Um, so there's kind of a couple interesting things with that. One of all, I think it fits near perfectly. Um, with the only exception of the kind of step 8 of ordeal, death, and rebirth. I feel like there's not really a death for this individual. It's more of a rebirth, and that's when she first grows. Um, but what I found super interesting is the hero's journey is split into ordinary world and special world. And crossing the threshold and the road back is supposed to be the transition from the ordinary world to the special world, and then the road back is obviously going back to the ordinary world.
Mm-hmm.
When we were introduced into Lemuria, she's already in quote unquote this special world. But I'd almost kind of, when you look at how the story works out, crossing the threshold to me is her crossing over and being in the trap in chapter 8. So I'd almost argue, if we were to just stay with Joseph Campbell's kind of assertion here, that the ordinary world in this story is actually Lemuria, which seems super odd, but then that kind of, and I know this, I'm trying to make this fit,
No, I know what you.
but it also kind of harkens to the point that she brings everything that from that original, like her original land, all her people, back through the mirror to Lemuria, and that becomes the new world. They're kind of creating a
Yeah,
new
the new
society. Um,
I thought that was an interesting twist because basically the way you're framing it is the hero's journey between two worlds. Uh, Lemuria seems like it should be the special world, but they flip it a little bit and because the moments in the hero's journey in the image that you linked, the death and rebirth, seizing the sword, and resurrection, they take place at the after the journey through the special world, or when she's trying to return to Austria, the quote unquote real world. It flips a little bit, but to use a comparison that we've hit on a couple times, it's almost like when Dorothy returns to Kansas, she, instead of saying "I saw all of you there," she brings everyone that's there in Kansas with her back to Oz. Is how Child of Light felt to me. The ending. I thought the ending was beautiful because they.
It's incredibly touching. It's very sweet.
Yeah, because in towards the end.
but are we talking about Oz or Child of Light?
Child
talking
of
about
Light.
Child
Yeah,
of Light,
in Child of Light.
Okay, good.
Because like you see in a flashback in chapter 8 or 9 that that her father's dukedom is flooding and might be done.
Mhm.
And but then at the very end, after you defeat the queen, you and your friends that you met in Lemuria go back to Austria and take everyone in Austria to Lemuria, and they all help rebuild Lemuria with her, and then you get this very adorable ending credits song.
From the 5 hilltops.
Yeah, and It felt like a fairy tale ending, but it
It did.
wasn't. It wasn't really similar to most fairy tale endings I had heard before. It was a totally fair subversion of a fairy of what felt like a real fairy tale. It was terrific. I thought the end sequence in Child of Light was great.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
agree.
and there's so many elements of this that it they steal certain notes from fairy tales. There's
Her name is Aurora, who's the princess in Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's evil stepmothers, there's dragons,
And stepsisters.
there's yeah, stepsisters. They're of course evil because no stepsister can be good. There's a partner that has no bravery. Like you start going through this, and there's stuff
They're
all
checking
over the
boxes
place.
that are very recognizable.
But at the end of the day, they have all that they based certain elements of the story around, and you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, they switch it up and do something original.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with and that's right. I think ultimately you have this I want more because it was so original at the end that you're so happy with it. It brought a really good feeling to me. So I was in a really good place when I finished it.
I
And I think that happiness
Yes.
or that like good feelings like yeah I'll do more of this because I feel great right now.
I would have liked more of a final dungeon because you get to the end of the Sun Shrine and then you defeat Nox and then you immediately fight her mother Umbra. I didn't even get to mess around with my Oculus or switch my party up before doing that. So I wouldn't have mind some kind of Chapter 11 final dungeon, but we ended
Or
up
a
not
better
getting
way
that.
to use your Oculuses, like I
Oculi, yeah,
complained
sure,
about in the first episode.
sure, but
Consistency is key, so I like it.
and also by the end of the game, my favorite character to use was Angus. So
Yeah, that guy was great.
he was terrific, and I would have loved another dungeon to mess around with using him. And I used basically the opposite of Josh Curry's strategies, where I would have Angus present almost I would have Angus present almost all the time, and the second party I would switch out Aurora to do the attack boost, Tristus to do the speed boost, and then Finn to back him up with magic. I would just do lots and lots of boosts with Angus slashing everybody.
What levels were you at when you finished the game for your
Honestly, can't
characters?
I don't remember. I remember I was not at level 50, but it was within reach. I think I was at level 46 or 7.
Okay. So that makes me feel good because you know how you said it took you 8 hours, but you could probably get through it in six.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So I'm the guy who did it in 5.5, 6.
Mhm.
But the end was a little stressful and a little frustrating. A lot of one-hit kills going on because I was really underleveled.
Okay.
The game became very hard, and those final bosses, I could not pull off combos like that. So I'm listening
Okay,
to you.
I was a little yeah. I probably overleveled a little bit. I didn't fight every single enemy I saw, but I did fight most of them or
Smart.
a great many of them. So yeah, I was maybe a little overleveled, but I didn't think the last two bosses were that challenging.
Yeah, they were
Part
rough.
part part of why because I mean I am experienced at RPG strategy
Oh, for sure.
and I effectively handled
Mike's
everything
really
they threw.
good at games.
No, I'm really not. If anything, I've gotten worse at games over the years. But I know how RPGs work, so I was able to just RPG my way through this game. But I probably was a little over leveled, and
I think I actually was a higher level than you because I think I broke into the 50s.
Yeah, I was at 35, so I was right there. It
Yeah,
was fun. I got
I
butchered.
didn't
during
have a
those final
tremendous
bosses.
difficulty with the final bosses.
Yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah, so I actually kind of disagree with you, Mike, about the final dungeon. One of the, and I get it's really hard to finish a game, but one of the things I usually really hate about endings to games is like the reliance on having a really, really difficult dungeon or a really difficult final boss. And I understand there has to be something there for you to conquer. Otherwise, it leaves you feeling with just like, well, okay, well, that was nothing. But at the same time, I feel like to be able to effectively pull that off, you either have to add in something gameplay wise that doesn't match what the rest of the game has shown you, or you have to make it just enormously tedious and difficult. So to a certain regard, I actually found it refreshing that you kind of it stuck to its guns, and there wasn't a tremendous dungeon, and it just kind of it was what it was.
No, I disagree with you wholesale. I don't think I don't think it would be betraying what it was to add another dungeon, because the end sequence of the game is chapter 8, you defeat one of your stepsisters. Then chapter 9 is another journey chapter. Chapter 10, you defeat another one. You defeat the second one of your sisters, and then immediately go to the final boss with a transition that I thought was a bit jarring. I thought maybe, going through a theoretical evil queen's castle up to before fighting her, even if it was another brief dungeon like the Sunshrine and Moonshrine, I think that would have been a little bit better for pace reasons, because it seemed to go a little too quickly from a dungeon that didn't feel like a final dungeon, then dungeon boss, final boss. I think it could have stood.
Oh, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, but I'm not I'm not saying there should have been an epic, hours-long super dungeon like.
Right, that's
No.
how I was interpreting what you were saying.
No,
Sorry.
I'm not talking about like I mean, I think the worst example of that is in Dragon Quest II. The Road to Rhone is just this 3 awful dungeons in a row where you can't save or heal in between any of them. I'm not saying.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Oh, and then at the end of those, you have to fight 2 bosses in a row.
Oh, good God.
But I'm not saying I want a Dragon Quest II situation. I'm just saying there could have been another dungeon with some dialogue and an air of finality to it.
Just to flesh some stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. Before the final boss.
That's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been fine with that.
Because it seemed a little abrupt. The Sunshine didn't feel like a final dungeon, and
it packs a lot into the last hour.
Yes.
Where
maybe,
the first
maybe
5 is very light. So
maybe even less
it
than...
feels very, very end heavy, and you're like, okay, oh God. Yeah, it might even be less than an hour.
That was one of those things I was thinking about it as we were getting ready for the show, and there wasn't a tremendous story-wise to discuss for the first episode of the podcast. It works out because we got to discuss
and the fights.
Yeah, we got to discuss kind of like how the game works, how it looks, the little bit of kind of gameplay. But then, like the second half, there was just story everywhere, and it felt like there was moments that were kind of cramming it together. But that's why, like going back to my first statement when we first started, is like, in a certain regard, it caught me off guard because I was like, this was not how this game was paced originally. And maybe I'm feeling that a little bit more because of how it ends, the kind of rapid fire that we get in.
Yeah, I think that it's just the pacing of it is very sudden. It's just all of a sudden we get these little morsels in the first, again, like 7 chapters, or 7 chapters, let's say, and then there's the turn of the reveal of your sister and your stepmother, and then all of a sudden, every boss fight and every end of chapter moment is much more of a reveal or a flashback to that moment with your mom, or looking more in on your father and the constant check in there. All of a sudden, instead of it being, and every once in a while a little hint of what's to come, it's now straight up just like, yeah, this is where we're going, and the next step is here. And it goes real quick. I mean, that everything of consequence we've talked about was 2 chapters. 9 and 10.
One of the nice
and the
things,
end of
though,
8.
I will say is it didn't really suffer from Mass Effectism.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, sure.
Where
the ending of it is almost feels like a betrayal, like not enough.
No, I'm not going Mass Effect 3. I'm going Mass Effect 2 on this.
Ooh. You mean like
where...
unresolved entirely?
No, just let me finish. I feel like a lot of RPGs do this, where like the world is going to end. This is really serious. Like we need to figure this out super quick. But you know what? I'm gonna go on this side quest, or I'm gonna do this for this person.
I get it.
The world is ending.
For this, there was an element of
go away for a month. Don't worry about it. I'll be back in a.
Yeah, I know that you guys are being invaded, but I'm just gonna go do this for a little bit I can level up and I can find this weapon and and at least in this, like it is slightly hurried, but there is an element of like we need to get this taken care of, and they get it taken care of right away. And maybe we like the video gameism of being able to wander off and do other things, but there was a sense of urgency, and they fully committed to that sense of urgency, I guess.
Yeah,
They see it through.
they do a
They
good
push you
job
forward.
of raising the stakes in the final couple chapters and having you sort of hurdle towards a finish. But to go back a little bit, you were saying how like the first 6 chapters have pacing way different from the last 3 chapters. And really, chapter 9 feels like the first 6 chapters because it's a bit of a tour. You're like, oh, here's a new setting, here's a new village. They have a problem, and we'll resolve the problem.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
it's really only chapters 8 and 10, and the end of
That get
chapter
crazy.
and the end of chapter 7 maybe. But um, I don't. Maybe that's why I felt like they could have used another endgame chapter to flesh it out more because because of that shift in tone and the shift in pace. But I didn't think it was bad. They keep consistently giving you new skills and new characters through the game so that you always feel like you're getting stronger and your party's growing stronger. So that part of, the path that an RPG takes didn't feel bad, but
Yeah,
the end did feel rushed. You only get Jen for 1 chapter,
yeah. I mean,
and then the
again,
game's over.
to your point, nothing is
No, no,
underserved. It's just
she doesn't join you until the end of chapter 9. You have to defeat the ogre, and
yeah.
then
It's
you
after
and
you
then,
defeat the ogre, you
and
come
then
back and tell her.
yeah, then
They're all dead.
Yeah.
you only get her for chapter 10.
Well, you tell her through song. You don't really tell her.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, you play your magic flute, and then spontaneously everyone's emotions just come out.
They understand the truth.
That flute becomes super important.
Yep.
It does. To answer
Uh,
or to talk about something you mentioned before about the universe that we're in this game and the idea of Aurora aging with the collection of the moon and the stars and the whatnot. I see that as to kind of what you talked about earlier. It's like that Narnia thing of
Right.
this world has its own time.
Oh right.
And
Yeah.
it's crazy because when she shows up at the end to save everyone, they're like, oh my god, the Princess Aurora. But there isn't a note in that cutscene of like, and she's so much older now. So to me, it becomes that kind of Narnia parable of growing up and existing, even though they make it much more of a clear, real world where these people can live, until the
Right.
end of time. But it is that kind of thing of they are existing in a separate world in space that doesn't follow our rules, and they're happy, so we should be happy for them. But
Right.
It's
And also
it's a fairy tale otherworld that has its own rules.
yeah, it's completely own rules. So again, about like your mom and all the rest of it is that there are things that this world we don't understand, even if it's a little bit like I was so sure that you were dead. Thanks, Mom. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed all that suffering I went through thinking you were dead when you spoke to
There's
me.
also a reflection, though, of her maturing.
Exactly.
Um,
The
and-
physical growth.
it's the physical growth to make sure that we understand that emotionally she is growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
'cause
it's a coming of age story, and they represent her maturity by having her literally mature in front of your eyes physically.
Just in
Yeah.
case you guys couldn't figure out what we're doing, look, she is older.
Yep.
Yeah. A little on the
And she
nose, but they
knows-
make sure that we know.
And she's learned more about the world each time.
It's like my favorite example of really blatant RPG metaphor is in Final Fantasy IV when Cecil undergoes a character transformation by literally transforming into a new character.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this
I haven't put that in forever.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
they really hit you over the head with it. Oh yeah, she's growing and maturing and becoming more like a queen and less like
you're a
an
new class.
yeah, and less like an unwilling princess that doesn't like being called princess. Because I mean, she matures when Angus calls her princess. She lets him call her princess.
Yeah, she embraces it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then she physically transforms, and when she transforms a second time, right at the end before the final boss, she gets her own regal crown that is not fake because she wears a silver crown that's a little different, and a sort of a white regal dress that sort of like her mother used to wear. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think kind of the ultimatum that Umbra serves about you can go back and be reunited with your father, or you can refuse and can choose to fight me instead. I think that was the ultimate test for her. I think if that was given to her at the very beginning,
Dad, I love you. I'm gonna save you. Yeah,
I think she chooses to just go with her father.
of course. Yeah.
And that was when it was really like she's not the same person that she was when she started off.
Yeah, it's not just about her needs. She
Right.
now understands it's about everyone else.
Right, and with that, because of that new path that she's able to go on, it ultimately gets it to that she becomes a savior of her people. And that was not at all in the cards when she first started the game. Like that was not who she was. That's not even who she wanted to be. And like you said, she fully accepts her role and like the power and responsibility that comes with that. And we get to see the tests over time and how she matures through them.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a coming of age story that happens in a very short amount of time, but you feel you're along the ride for it. You're along her with I can't speak today. You're with her along for the ride, and it's believable. I never felt like it was cheap, the transformation she went through.
Right.
Um,
Now, how about I mean, we've talked about length, but for all those heroes that join us on the way, who are the ones you use the most, and who are your favorites?
In the
I
first
got
half of
that.
the game, I used Finn and Nora the most.
Okay.
And then in the second half of the game, I Angus was the character I used the most right when he joined through to the end,
Uh huh.
and I used almost everyone at least occasionally except for Robert.
Interesting.
But,
Okay.
but so yeah, like so Finn and Angus, I guess, were my mains, but
Hmm.
I used everyone a little bit.
Cool.
as we kind of already talked, Angus and Jen are both ridiculously cool. Um,
Yeah, they're great,
so
and also sorry to interrupt, but Tristus joins in chapter 7, and
Suicidal clown.
yeah, the saddest clown of all. And Jen joins at the beginning of chapter 10, but they both basically have Nora's skill set. Cause
Yeah, just spread out.
Jen has paralyzers and delays, and Tristus has barriers and haste spells,
Yep.
which were so like when Nora leaves your party, she basically divided her move set in two between two of the late game characters. I thought that was a neat touch.
Yeah, and that
so
their
there was an
versions are just
element
more dynamic.
when they first took away your characters. I was like, I knew it. I waited this whole time for them to take my whole party away. Although it was really really short.
Yeah.
Um,
Thankfully.
but
Oh god.
yeah, yeah.
That would.
I used the golem, which I know you guys.
Yep. We
Nobody
did not
nobody
have him.
ended up downloading it. No.
No.
Okay.
No, I did check it. It's only $3 on UPlay, but I ended up not doing it. And oh, also just quick aside, UPlay is garbage. That is
You
Oh,
play.
it's
awful.
terrible.
It's
Uplay is one of the worst things ever.
every time because I played the game on PC via Steam, and I had to deal with UPlay interfaces and sort of overwrites all the time whenever I logged on, and it even crashed during the end credits for me because I don't know exactly what happened, but I think it was like some 32-bit UPlay with my 64-bit system, but I don't know exactly what happened, but yeah, UPlay is garbage. Anyway, go on, Josh.
Um. Oh, characters.
Yeah.
So like we talked about last time. I used primarily Rebella and the Golem in the first little bit. But as it went on, I progressively used Finn more because his magic was so strong. But at the end, I mixed in Agnes and Jen because again, I really really
So
like those
useful.
character
Yeah.
designs. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
they fit a pretty strong character arc for Angus in like a 20-minute time period because
Yep.
he's a slave of the Queen of Darkness. He's guarding your cell. When he realizes you're the Princess of Light, and he says maybe you can make the world how it used to be, so he frees you and joins you. And then while you're escaping that same dungeon, he finds his comrades, and you meet them, and it turns out that Angus is an outcast because he's helping the Queen of Darkness at all. And then like another 15 minutes later, at the end of the game, his comrades forgive him. It's like that was an emotional roller coaster over 45 minutes of game.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
Again,
self-loathing that they
they
packed in
fit a
there.
lot of things in
In the
really
last
quickly.
in the last three chapters, there's a lot more drama and more stakes than the first seven combined.
It's true.
Yeah. Uh, that is a good point. They did a good job kind of having full story arcs for everybody. Um, Even to a certain regard, they did it. The main villains they tried to have some sort of motivation or closure with that as well. I hate this, but they like the whole Umbra, where it's like um, she was just trying to make a home.
Yep.
Yeah,
A place where we
yeah.
belong. That's
Yeah.
ours.
She had been exiled from Lemuria to the quote-unquote real world, and part of her motivation for taking it over was to be able to return it and have it be their home again. But I mean, there's some feelings of ambition and selfishness that had her try to remake Lemuria in her image, which is a little different
Yeah.
than just wanting a home.
Yeah. So my wife, which by extension than me, watches a lot of Once Upon a Time.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like literally every villain at the end of the day wants acceptance and they want somewhere to belong. And literally what goes through my mind every time I see that now is just like, stop being a dick.
Yeah, it's
Like,
kind of like use a historical example. When Genghis Khan conquered 2/3 of Asia and part of Europe, he just really wanted the place to belong, and that place was everywhere in the world.
but I mean, it's so true. Like,
Just everywhere.
you look at these characters and they want to fit in. They want to like be part of something. It's like you're alienating everybody and anybody that gets close to you, you murder. Like, how are you expecting that anything's going to be like go well for you? I don't know. So when she said that, I was like, oh, I hate you so much more now. I'm glad you're dying.
Like, this is
It's
so... Your bad lipstick needs to go away. I'll kill you. They did a weird
Her
thing with
makeup
mouth.
was
I
her
kept
makeup was
focusing
not
it.
on point, not at all.
No, I kept
No.
focusing on it.
Mhm.
Way off fleek. Way off fleek.
Especially since, like, I mean, Aurora's looking fierce as hell for that final battle with the new crown and the new dress and
No,
the
she's bae.
and the
I mean-
the flowing red locks. I mean, she looked terrific.
Yeah, and just absolutely dropped the ball with Umbra.
Yeah. The battle of impressions.
She's
for
a
the
queen.
final
You thought she'd
yeah.
have, much
But
more.
she doesn't have any aides anymore because nobody likes her.
No, she's a queen, but she ain't no Maleficent. Even though she does turn into a big purple dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all do turn into dragons, and there's part of me that's just like, oh, I kind of wish I was a dragon.
Well, okay, that.
How cool would that have been if you just all of a sudden just busted into a
Yeah,
dragon?
like a white dragon. I
Oh
thought that-
man, and
yeah.
and the final battle is just dragon versus dragon.
Yep.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I thought that was going to be a possibility.
been an
and then when it
on-rail
didn't
shooter.
happen, I was like, damn it, I'm not a dragon. Suddenly we're playing.
You shoot fire and dodge their fire. Yeah.
Man,
I'm actually happy that wasn't it.
that kind of that kind of is how some Breath of Fire games go, where you and the other guy both turn into dragons and fight it out. But no, Child of Light is not Breath of Fire. Capcom doesn't make RPGs anymore.
No. Not at all.
They make more games than Konami, so at least that's something.
This is true. I mean, does Dead Rising count as an RPG? I still haven't played those games.
do slot machines and pachinko machines count as games? Because maybe Konami
Yes.
does make games. Man, screw Konami.
But at least we're getting Metal Gear Solid with some zombies. Woo! Because we all wanted that.
And Aurora's going to be a DLC character. So,
I would consider Aurora DLC in other games.
yeah.
You know, when I was looking for the Golem DLC, there actually is DLC to transform Aurora into two different forms. Each one has There's one that's like light Aurora and one that's darkness Aurora, and they change how she looks and give each one gives her a new spell, and you get a bunch of Oculus gems with it. But it's actually a little bit concerning how there was there was a lot of Uplay DLC. Again, Uplay is garbage. That just gave you Oculus items and Stardust items. Stardust items are the ones that increase your stats by a small amount.
Yep.
And
I pre-ordered this game because I was super excited for it back in the day.
Mhm.
That's why I had the Golem DLC, and I think maybe I do have the DLC with the costumes. I don't know, but I think I have all of the DLC for the gems and the upgrades and whatnot.
So it probably gave you a
there's
bunch of extra gems and upgrades plus the Golem stuff.
Crap
baked
ton
in.
of them.
Right. Okay.
No, you just got
Yeah.
that because you were cool.
Well,
You
yeah,
just knew.
I'm
No,
kind
but
of a big deal.
Yeah, but there was a lot of.
But yeah, I actually purposely don't use those because you could tell from the beginning. I was like, they gave me too much stuff. Like I should not. Like this would make this game ridiculously easy.
But then for the final dungeon, you combine them all together so you can have a sweet loadout for the last run, right?
Yeah, just eat
I
all the
actually
power
forgot to
candy
do
and
it.
murder. Of course.
I like legitimately forgot to do it. I forgot it was there.
The bonuses are significant, but I'm sure you could play a no Oculus run of this game without difficulty at all. But I did have a oh shoot, the last gem that you get, the gold one, I did have a brilliant version of that one thrown on to Angus because it gave him like 35% extra physical damage.
God, that character was awesome.
Yeah, he's terrific. He's I didn't get to play with the golem, but if you don't have the golem, Angus is your
Angus is your tank.
yeah, he's
Like
your big
hardcore
damage.
tank.
Yeah, he's your hard-hitting tank and he is great. I used him a lot.
I think the only other person who did as much physical damage was Robert with some of his skills.
Yeah, Robert has a lot of Robert's a little weird. He's a little frail, but he has
Yeah.
a couple moves that hit twice and a couple moves that can inflict like delay and poison. But
Yep.
so he can deal okay damage, but it never felt like, meaty damage. It felt like sort of
No, it's not the same. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like you've just bashed a dude's head in. It was
No.
more just good damage across the board.
It's slippery damage, and also he wasn't he wasn't very robust. So and I liked using Angus both as a tank and as the main damage engine.
Right. So we liked it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
End of the day,
yeah.
like I bitched a little bit about how it all wrapped up, but I thought it was a great game. And to what we said
honestly-
about last time through, it's like it is such to me. It's still such a great game to be like, hey, person who's never played an RPG, get an understanding of mechanics. To your point from last episode, Mike, about that Hydra battle, it's like understand resistances, Pokemon style.
Yeah,
It's a simple deal.
Yeah, it communicates that basics of RPGs very smartly in this game, and there's a lot of freedom that you have. Like the skill trees are easy to understand, the gem system is easy to understand. It's gorgeous and fun to play through. It doesn't wear out its welcome. I think Child of Light's great, and a few small hang-ups about the ending aside, I would recommend it to just about anyone that likes video games.
Yeah, I really only have one massive complaint about Child of Light, and it's not really even centered towards Child of Light. But we spent the first, 10-15 minutes of the last podcast talking about how wonderful it was for Ubisoft to be taking all these kind of experiments. And really, that's the only thing that's really disappointing to me is
They're having more of those.
yeah, I would have loved more of these. And I
Instead
don't
of
need
the
Child
one
of Light
year
2.
of creativity.
Yeah, I don't need Child of Light 2. I think this has a nice little bow on it. I don't want a prequel. I don't want a sequel. I would like something else. And it's fine even if it's the same kind of battle system and whatnot. But there is so much here that is done correctly. Like I really enjoy how the story is told. I love the art in this game. The battle system's fun. I love flying around all over the place. Like there's lots of things that I like about it. So I would have liked for this team to move on to something else where they could kind of still try out the whole RPG, do some tropey things, do some experimental things, but come up with some other package that I'm willing to bet would be brilliant, just like this.
Yeah, they had Child of Light come out the same year as Valiant Hearts, and those were really the only two Ubi Art Engine games that felt like, these true like indie productions of a big budget studio.
Yeah,
and
off the beaten path titles for that.
exactly. And one of Ubisoft's other subdivisions did Grow Up and Grow Home, or I'm sorry, Grow Home then Grow Up.
Yes.
Which were similar, indie productions but with large studio backing. But we haven't had many of those from Ubisoft, which is too bad because I think they're all good, and even if you don't think they're good, if they're not your kind of game, it's a little bit heartening to see them make an effort to put a lot of craft into a small type of game instead of obviously chasing the big check all the time with your Far Cry's and Assassin's Creeds, speaking, strictly Ubisoft. So, yeah, I'm with you, Josh. It's a little bit disappointing that there aren't more efforts like Child of Light from Ubisoft in particular, and maybe AAA game companies in general.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was struck with at the end. Like, I finished the game, I was like, I'm really happy with this. I really like this. and then you kind of do that. This is more of like a music analogy, but like I really like this artist or this song. What else can I listen to? And it's kind of the same thing with this. Is like I really enjoy this. I like what they put out. What can I play that they also came out with? And it's like, well, Far Cry and Assassin's Creed, I already play those like that. That's not scratching the same itch at all. And that was where I was like, you kind of had that turn where like, well, I'm kind of frustrated because this was actually really enjoyable.
Yeah.
I know it's a small quibble, and it's a quibble that's not even centered towards Center of Light or Child of Light, but it's a quibble nonetheless, I guess. But yeah, overall, 2 thumbs up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a good this is a good RPG.
Yep, very good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's solid. Absolutely.
And a great little escape if you're just looking for something.
It was so nice after playing Danganronpa.
Yeah, okay, yeah. There are maybe some tonal differences between Danganronpa and Child of Light. I will agree to that.
So refreshing.
Pure insanity of the best kind to
and
simple, delightful, charming.
And after the first podcast, I was thinking about a bunch of fairy tales I read as a child, and that's what got me thinking about that Brothers Lionheart book. But this game feels like a fairy tale without maybe necessarily ripping off every fairy tale you've ever read. It felt like people that love fairy tales wanted to make a fairy tale RPG, and they totally succeeded in doing so.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it last time, and we mentioned again the Valiant Hearts in this, but that reality of how just as a team with the UbiArt engine, it just feels like the company would be so well served if they would just allow people coming off of other projects to be like, try your hand at this engine, see what you can come up with. Almost like what Double Fine does with their Fortnites and their just game jams. Just be like, here's this engine which was designed to be simple to create assets. Go have fun.
What real talk moment here? What do you think the industry's level of acceptance would be if the team behind, like the teams, assuming they're different teams behind Child of Light and Valiant Hearts got together and made a 60-hour RPG, 60-hour RPG, like AAA, coming out of Ubisoft?
I honestly think a lot of people, and not in a mean way, would say, why what you guys are doing with those smaller games and those kind of more manageable 5 to 10 hour experiences are just as valid and charming. And I think people would be like, you could just keep doing that because we have enough of the 60-hour stuff. I think that's what the reaction would be.
I would react in a different way. It's because Child of Light and Valiant Hearts were designers or developers that work on AAA gigantic games all day. Like,
and that was their break.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think they're all from some Assassin's Creed Rayman team mix, and this was what they did instead. So if they went the other way and made a AAA RPG, it would not be why are these people working on a AAA game? It would be why is Ubisoft making a 60-hour RPG in 2016? Because
that was kind of the direction I was going with.
Yeah, that's not really something that you see from a large Western studio. I mean, Ubisoft is French. Yeah, Ubisoft is French, but they have studios everywhere.
Yeah,
right. But it's not BioWare from the Americas, and it's definitely not from Japan. So why is this being made? And that's why I was kind of wondering if it would just be largely ignored. And we don't talk about game sales on this very often, but I mean, did Child of Light actually do well? Is that why we haven't seen Child of Light 2?
Yeah, that's most of it is that both this and Valiant Hearts did solidly, but it was nothing to write home about. I mean, it's the same way of how, or in a similar way, it's like how the first Banner Saga was good enough and really got saved by Steam sales and other stuff in terms of constantly getting it out there, but its sequel has not done well so far, even though it's a great game. Yeah, to an extent, with a lot of these, they're great. But once people have had that, I've had my, for a lot of people when they dip into the indie space, it's not something that they really play a lot of. And so they go, that was my one game, then I'm going to go back to my AAA. Because when it comes to unit attachment or software attachment rate to a console, I think the average is like it's 5-6 games a year.
This is the Vita.
Good. Yes, exactly. Except for the Vita, which is now close to like high 20s to 30s. It's nuts. which is way beyond average.
That's absurd.
So yeah, so if someone buys something like a Child of Light, that might be the only dip into that world that they take for a whole year, unless it's on PS Plus kind of thing, or game.
That's what I kind of. That's what I was thinking. My guess would be, unfortunately, that this did not do whatever it was necessary to justify them continuing to do this. With you add in then also the increased budgets that's necessary for kind of PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah, it's just gotta be. Which is why, again, the UbiArt engine, as just a framework, is so fantastic because it was about making cheap and beautiful assets, and just make it super simple. That's what's weird to me. It's like these games got made less because about can they make their money and all the rest of it. It was more just take a break from the AAA, and it's going to be easy to do. So go ahead and do it.
Right. Well,
Or easier, because of course it's not easy. It's game development.
I'm with you, but also these games are recent. I mean, Child of Light came out in 2014. Valiant Hearts was 13 or 14. Grow Home was last year, 2015. So I don't think the door is closed on Ubisoft making more games like this. But
they made a huge push and then didn't talk about these kind of games anymore after they both came out. Like Grow Home, sure, but
also like these games weren't enormously hyped before they came out. They had Ubisoft's backing, and like Child of Light came out on a ton of different platforms.
Yeah,
but
there were a lot of previews and articles written because sites and publications did think that this was such a cool step for a publisher like Ubisoft to take. So there was, while it wasn't, marketing like TV marketing, totally, you're right, there was a lot of coverage.
Yeah, it was absolutely celebrated, and it was super easy to cover because it looked so good.
Yeah. But also, I don't think they would have expected this to make a lot of money.
I agree.
I don't know. Sometimes like that type of stuff throws me off because like you hear the first new Tomb Raider and it sold like 6 million or whatever at the time, and they're like, yeah, it's a disappointment, underperformed. I was like, that was those were Japanese executives in a boardroom that were extremely out of touch and basically missaid that. That's the kind of comment that you keep in the boardroom and never let anyone in the public hear. Right.
But for Child of Light, Ubisoft is doing the right thing. It probably didn't make enough money to justify its budget, or at least its marketing budget. But I think they weren't trying to make a ton of money with Child of Light. They were trying to make an indie game that would...
It was an experiment.
Yeah, it was an experiment, and also maybe it would generate some goodwill for Ubisoft. Like, oh, we're big, mean Ubisoft that everyone makes fun of for making 2 Assassin's Creed games a year, but here's this charming indie thing. Maybe Ubisoft will do a charming indie thing every other year just to curry favor with news outlets that think of Ubisoft as a big soulless game conglomerate. I don't think Child of Light was supposed to make a lot of money.
No, but that's not what I was trying to infer, as in like, oh, it didn't make its money so it can't have another sequel. I just mean more of, you're right, I don't think they expected it to be, sell gangbusters and make a huge profit. But they have a framework to allow anyone to hypothetically create smaller games that I know Child of Light made its money back because it did sell well enough. Like, it sold at least a few 100,000 copies, which I have to assume for that game and its size probably paid its budget back.
I haven't done any research into it, but I would not be surprised if it lost money. But I don't think that's as important.
I think that's definitely with Valiant Hearts, but I'm not sure what this. And to wrap it up, you're right, because now we're getting way belaboring it. But it's that idea of let other people within your company take that same shot. And that's the one thing I haven't heard talked about that's disappointing.
Right,
is there isn't that push behind it of like, we're going to let all these people create fun stuff.
So this was an article from 2 years ago.
Oh, you found it?
No.
Speaking to I want to make sure I get the name right. The creative director from Far Cry 3, and by extension, he was the kind of like the lead for Child of Light.
Oh, Child of Light, right.
Speaking of the success, it's not as profitable as Assassin's Creed is profitable, but it's profitable enough that we would have been able to fund a sequel. After working on Far Cry 3, I I feel like he meant to say I didn't want to make Far Cry 4, but they said, Pat, if you do that and help build that brand, we're going to give you a free shot at the game you want. At most, Child of Light's team was made up of 40 individuals, and Plurdy also revealed that the overall cost was a couple of million. The success of Child of Light has perhaps vindicated Ubisoft's decision to allow its developers to experiment alongside their work with AAA titles. And then moving on from there, he states that they have given have given the go-ahead for them to work on an additional personal game. I don't know. This was 2 years ago, so maybe that was Grow Home.
No, Grow Home was a separate studio.
Yep.
It
But
was
maybe
one of,
that
it was
means
one
it's
of their
something
UK
still in
studios.
development on the side.
Yeah.
To Mike's point, maybe there's
and
just
it's
a lot of small projects we don't know about.
The article kind of makes it refer to that with Far Cry 4 being done, now we could possibly, or at the time it was in its closing stages, we could be seeing something from a small portion of that team coming out as well.
Yeah, I think there will be more small Ubisoft games like Child of Light. They may or may not use the UbiArt engine, but I don't think it's as important. So. I don't think they're not trying to make like tens of millions of dollars.
No.
If an Assassin's Creed or a Far Cry game does not make tens of millions of dollars, it's a failure. If one of these does not make tens of millions of dollars, it's not a failure. It's just an experiment that didn't cost them that much to make. So I think there will be more games like this, but I don't know what they will be like or if they'll be Child of Light 2 or not. Ubisoft did a very cool thing, and hopefully they continue doing this cool thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to wrap up the counter conversation. Is we're all very happy.
Yes.
I guess a call to action to the people listening: if there is like a developer out there that is doing something that you like or you want to support, the easiest way to support them is to actually buy their games,
game,
to
not
actually
used.
play it, and then make sure other people are playing it. Yeah, so get out there and use your wallets. And then if you're pissed about Call of Duty doing the same crap every year, don't buy it. But yeah,
Or buy
small
it.
soapbox.
They do a great blockbuster action.
Yeah, but then don't turn around 2 weeks later and complain about, oh, I just had to shoot more people. Look at all these monster clauses. They can't figure out how to do spawning of enemies still. You knew that's what was going to be going into it, so don't come to me crying.
I don't think anyone is coming to you crying about Call of Duty games, Josh, so that problem's already solved itself.
You'd be actually really surprised.
Sure. Okay.
I am very excited about the random messages you get on Twitter and Instagram. I imagine like direct messages from Instagram. People being like, "Why? Why do they do it, Josh?"
Yeah, exactly.
You're like,
see, I'm glad Chris at least knows my pain.
I'm underestimating Josh's clout as a tastemaker.
Social media.
Yeah,
that too. Okay. Yeah,
Josh Curry, tastemaker.
I was more referring to my friends, but okay, you guys can be dicks. So we've joked a couple times about how going from Danganronpa to Child of Light was a massive shift. We are going to have a very similar shift moving into November. Coming from Child of Light, we are going to move on and talk about Diablo 3.
Yay! Oh,
again, not much different of a game that we can get, but really good one.
Diablo 3, another game that puts all of its story into the very end. There's just
yes, or at least that's worth kind of pretending to care about.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say Diablo 3 has a great story, but it is one of my favorite games to play just when I want to play a game and have fun, and I'm never searching for, deep story or moving dialogue in a Diablo game, but I think they're super fun, and I can't wait to play more Diablo and talk about it with you later this month, Josh.
Yeah, get really excited, because with Mike on a podcast talking about Diablo 3, we might break the 3-hour mark on one of our recordings.
I'm excited, Mike, because it's just going to be you gushing.
Yeah, we may need to develop a system to have you guys administer electric shocks to me in case I start getting a little too intense.
Well, yeah.
No, because we already missed we should have done shock therapy to fix your fascination with Blitzball, and so we already missed that. So
Right, yeah.
at this point,
Blitzball.
just do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, right now it's too far. I mean, now I love Blitzball, and I want every sport to be Blitzball, and it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, you're already ruined. We should really just replace you with somebody that doesn't have terrible taste in sports games.
I've spent so many hours playing Blitzball.
Yeah, I was watching
both as a kid, and the second time through, I played that game.
I was watching NBA's opening weekend a little while ago, and the whole time I'm just thinking, come on, John Wall, do the eject shot. What are you doing, man? You're running into all these defenders, and they're always bottlenecking you. You just got to eject shot those assholes.
You know why he couldn't? Because he didn't complete the mini game. He got too nervous.
Yeah, that's the mini game on the ship, man. But doesn't he know you can replay that if you mess up?
No, he didn't realize
that.
Yeah, you have to take the ship back and then back again and go to the front of it, and it's a pain in the rear.
It's the worst.
Is that true? Actually,
yes,
I
you
never
can.
did. I'm lucky that I got it.
You can replay the jack shot mini game, but
when I was a kid,
it's a pain.
I was so jealous of never having that shot.
I'm not sure you can do it for the first Blitzball game. Maybe you have to wait until you're done with Lucas stuff. But
no, you can actually do it in the first tournament.
Okay.
So
I did it in the first time last time.
No, I'm talking about replaying the mini game.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not
just
sure.
Turn it off and replay it that way.
Oh, okay, well that's yes, but
the ultimate way to replay something.
Answer.
Yeah, the long story short, I was watching NBA games and thinking about Blitzball in the back of my mind. Maybe.
You've been forever ruined. You're just tainted now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing you play it on your Vita, and so while watching basketball, you can just.
No, I haven't played FF10 since we played it for Retro Encounter, but I just really liked Blitzball, and Josh and
It's
Peter.
actually really good. It's really good.
Yeah, Josh and Peter gave me a little bit of crap for it.
A little bit?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Hey, look, I spent also a lot of time with FF9's card game, even though I'm not even sure if I completely still understand it to this day. I love it.
I
love it.
I think I have lost at least a full 24 hours of my life to Chocobo Hot and Cold over multiple plays of FF9.
So much.
Yeah. Oh god, I played that stuff so much.
Speaking of Final Fantasy, we also have, I think we've mentioned this before, Mike and Alana sat down and discussed Final Fantasy VI for a decent amount to kind of go over her experience, because it was her first time playing through it, and that she wrote a wonderful feature on the website, and then they touch on some points from that, and then I'm sure there's massive amounts of gushing about how wonderful Final Fantasy VI is.
Yeah, that's a really, really gushy podcast, because it was she played it for the first time earlier this year. It's been one of my favorite RPGs for 20 years, and we just gushed about FF6 for 45 minutes or so. It's we had a lot of fun recording it, and we might still play FF6 for this podcast eventually. I'm not saying it'll never happen. But yeah,
I'm saying it's going to happen at some point.
Okay, all right.
Down the line.
Well, regardless, there is now a bonus round that you will be listening to soon, where Alana and I talk about FF6 a lot.
Yeah.
And if you don't know about FF6, worth listening to. It's a lot of fun.
Weird time loop thing, because this will happen afterwards, but in a couple days, Mike and I will have our BlizzCon podcast, but this posts after that, so
yeah, we have not recorded the BlizzCon podcast yet.
To it and you'll enjoy it.
We have not recorded it yet, but it will have already been posted by the time you, the listeners, listen to this podcast.
So hopefully you've already enjoyed that.
So yeah, hopefully Josh and I both loved everything about BlizzCon, but I truthfully do not know at this point.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that announcement of StarCraft Ghosts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was really surprising that they went straight to Diablo 5 instead of Diablo 4.
Well, more surprising, I think, is StarCraft Ghost being a Wii U exclusive. I thought it would have been on the Switch, but those Blizzard guys, they're crazy.
Yeah, that's right, the Switch. We haven't talked about that. Another day, oh my god, the hour.
Oh, you guys want to talk about the Switch?
No.
Yeah, Diablo 5 on Switch. This podcast has already gone on a while. Maybe we should just do a bonus round all about the Switch.
Yeah, and just remember that trailer they showed in that of the Switch had a very janky version of Skyrim playing, but we should all be very excited for its power.
It's never coming out.
Skyrim or the Switch?
Skyrim on Switch.
Oh, Diablo 5, never coming out, right.
Diablo 5, no, that will come out. Give it a couple decades.
Yeah, maybe we should do a Switch bonus round in a couple weeks. Why not?
That'd be fun.
I'm
See what
down
everyone
for that.
thinks.
Yeah, we should ask the staff and see if anyone else wants to record that.
We'll be very excited, people, because we're gonna
Love
have a
somebody
Switch
that's
episode
positive,
coming your
'cause-
way.
Somebody has to balance me out on this.
I'm sure it won't be hard to find someone optimistic about the Switch just to balance out your negativity, Josh. I think we can manage. But maybe we should wrap this podcast up before we
Yeah.
before we change subjects again.
I can feel like my jaw tightening as I want to go off.
no.
Yeah, let's stop here because this was a really positive podcast.
Did
Let's
you
do
know?
it.
Did you know that the Switch
I'll have-
controller has NFC communication, so you can incorporate your amiibos with the Switch?
Oh my
See-
god, it's a Josh Curry dream.
That would be really
Mhm.
important if I was still receiving amiibos from my anonymous donor, but
Are you upset?
apparently
Are you
they
upset
stopped
that I
caring about me.
Are you upset I didn't send you an amiibo this year for your birthday?
I got lots of promises this year, and nothing actually came of it.
I
so-
didn't promise anything this year. I just told you last year I would send you one.
No, you promised all the Zelda ones.
Okay, all right. I'll send you an amiibo for Christmas, Josh.
Yay!
Oh my god. The best part is you're gonna get these amiibos and you're immediately gonna like throw them out.
No,
Just
I
like-
actually set them on my desk at my house.
That makes sense. They're cool figures. You get your little
Yeah.
action figures. You can
The worst part about this, and this is where
have them make out.
I go into like self-loathing. Like, everybody's heard my feelings about amiibos,
Yep.
but then the collector in me, I get it, and I look at the box, and I was like, I shouldn't open this box.
Oh no.
It's like I don't care about
Box.
the amiibos. Why am I not opening them? And I just stare at them, and then they stay in the box, so they're staying in boxes.
Oh no. No.
Yeah,
Gotta take them out.
well, it's not like I need to use them. Nope.
That's true.
Nintendo doesn't even use them in their games. Why would I need to use them?
That's all changing.
And
with
on
the
that
Switch.
note, thank you for
Man.
listening to a wonderful episode.
Yay.
I even said we should
Oh,
stop
retro
before we
counter.
change subjects, and we
And we
changed
changed
subjects
it.
twice.
We did it. We did it.
Oh man,
You're right. You're right.
We
Uh,
did it.
self-fulfilling
Yay.
prophecy.
This is a
So,
weird one. It's winter time. People
Remember
get
that
sick
Child
of
Light
the
is wonderful. Support developers that you like.
Yay.
Keep enjoying Retro Encounter. We appreciate you listening. And just for clarification, Uplay is garbage.
You
Have a
you
wonderful
play is
night.
just the worst. It makes me like Ubisoft games less every time I have to deal with that stupid Uplay interface.
I love you, Mike.
Oh
That was
God.
almost finally a clean ending, but then you play is that
like-
awful. I agree. It's like it deserves.
It's
being
like I go to a bakery and I buy a cupcake, and then when I'm about to leave with my cupcake, they're like, "Wait a second, there's one last thing," and then they just drop a turd on your on your cupcake, and that's
I thought you were
Uplay.
going to say on your chest. I was like, what bakery are
No.
you going to?
No,
the
like
best kind of bakery. Where do you? Yeah, tell me
Uplay
about
is
that.
the unwanted turd on top of your cupcake, and the game is
Agreed.
your the game is your cupcake in this metaphor.
Same
we
thing
should-
with Origin and all that crap.
I think
That's
Origin.
not even fair.
I think
That's not
Origin-
even fair to Origin.
Origin is a little better than Uplay. Uplay's
Sure,
just
it's
really
better.
a
bad.
lot
Still
better
like
than
it.
Uplay.
It's still
Like-
useless to me.
I think Uplay is 20 times worse than Origin. But maybe we should actually end this podcast instead of just talking about ending this podcast.
Bye, friends.
Thank you for listening.
At The Real Monsoon on Twitter.
Shitty Kirk. Ooh.
Time stood still for a while. Your hand was holding mine. The stars that shined in your eyes, and don't let them go by. Fly on, you golden girl, and take on your fears. I'll be with you in your dreams. The world is darker than